All right. I've got the weather forecast for today.
Yeah? What is the weather forecast for today?
It's looking pretty windy.
Looking pretty windy. I entirely forgot that you were going to do that bit. I entirely forgot. It is looking very windy, though.
Yeah, it's pretty windy. We've got 4 winds today.
I distinctly remember yesterday when we finished looking at the winds, we said, well, we might not see you. This
might be it.
This might be it before this side of the event. And now we've got 4 more winds to go through.
And they're quite virtuous, the winds, as well.
And about time.
Also, I'm Charlie.
Oh, and I'm Danielle.
And we're LARP Larks.
LARP Larks.
LARP Larks.
Rolls off the tongue.
Really does. And so, we've got a few winds. They're not too long today.
No, I think we had a look at them. They're kind of compact.
Yes.
I think the 4th one does have a lot of kind of back and forth bits and pieces in it.
It's a marcher one, so there's lots of
there's lots of fish shaking and anger and things like that. But the other 3 relate to rites of consecration, which is a brand new, exciting, shiny judgment that the synod can do.
Yeah, which is very cool.
I didn't know before now. I was at the last event. I think I voted on some of these writs of consecration.
Yeah.
I think I voted to approve them. I didn't know what a writ of consecration was. I didn't know at all. I don't know if you knew.
A writ of consecration?
Yeah.
I think I'd heard about it, and I remember the one that we specifically voted on because it was in the Ambition Assembly.
Yes.
And that's going to come up today.
Yes.
Which I'm excited about. But it's not the first one. The first one is on Pride.
Yes.
Specifically, the Pride of Geralt Brackensong. And we've got a little bit of flavour text today. And we always save that.
That. So we've not read the flavour text. This is our treat. This is our
little treat.
A little treat to ourselves.
Okay. It had been a long day on the trod. The magic might give you the energy to keep walking longer than was good for you, but it didn't do anything for the cold and rain. They'd all been glad when they'd made it to Black Pine's Way House. Comfy chairs, a roaring fire, a table heaving with hot food. Life didn't get much better than this. So of course, Morgan and Sifra had to start arguing. This time it was about the news about Geralt Brackensong that had set them off. Look, he gave his life fighting the Valorn. He died so others could get away. That's what's inspirational about him. Morgan was a thorn, and he took his responsibilities to protect the others pretty seriously. He once got a 4 crown fine from the magistrates after a league mountebank. He suggested he was just the Striding's hired We'll start again. Take it again from the top. He once got a 4 crown fine from the magistrates after a league mountebank had suggested he was just the Striding's hired muscle. Lots of people die fighting the Valorn, though, don't they? Sifra countered. That's why we're Navarre. We've sworn to give our lives to defeat the Valorn, whatever it takes. Remember? So I'm sure this fellow is great, but not a big deal. No big deal? He sacrificed himself. Stayed behind to save the others. That's no big deal, is it? I'd like to think you lot would remember me if I sacrificed myself to save the rest of you. Of course we would, Morgan, Sifra reassured him, but she flashed the others a grin. We'd drink a toast to your name in every way house between here and rest, because we know that if we didn't raise a glass, your ghost would haunt the lot of us and never shut up about it. Morgan glowered at the mockery, even as the others laughed. Sifra raised her hands to disarm her sibling. Look, what I'm saying is that Geralt's love of music, that is inspirational. They reminded us to take pride in what we have. Their love of songs and stories is what's important. Not getting eaten by the Valorn, which any lummox can manage. More laughter followed, but Morgan was deadly serious now. Others carried on those traditions after Geralt died, he protested. Sifra smiled indulgently at her brother. That's what an inspiration is, you fool. Everyone does stuff. An exemplar inspires people. They don't just achieve something virtuous, they inspire others to virtue. And Geralt's sacrifice inspires me, retorted Morgan, with a little more heat than Raylan the Brand was happy with. She put a stop to the growing fight with a gentle word and sent the siblings to fetch things from the opposite sides of the Way House to give them both time to calm down. But everyone knew that they'd be hearing this debate between songs and sacrifice again, all the way to Semisquack. So,
Geralt Brackensong is already an exemplar of pride.
Yep. Okay, cool.
So, an exemplar of pride is the kind of second highest honour that the Pride Assembly, but if you were an exemplar of a different virtue, then the relevant assembly can bestow on someone, with the next highest honour being a paragon, which would be very cool. So I read a little bit about Gerald Brackensong. I don't know whether or not you read a bunch about his backstory.
I decided to go back to front on the wins, just so I might be able to cover some of them.
I'm in front to back. That's a good plan. That's a good plan. So this is the one you've probably looked at the least. Then. No, that's good. That's the one. This is the one I've looked at the most. Fantastic.
That's good.
The system that I didn't know in place is working.
Very good.
Very wise.
A master plan.
Yes, scheming the whole time. But anyway, Geralt Brackensong was sadly deceased now. Was a kind of like a musician, a performer. I don't know if Geralt was also a warrior, but the general idea is that they gave their life in service to fighting the Valorn.
Yeah.
There was basically something that happened in the past, and it meant that an area, a territory, was going to come under threat, and a significant loss of life was going to be incurred. And because of Geralt's actions, because of their sacrifice, that didn't happen. And I think and that is kind of what that argument is at the start. There is an argument between whether or not Geralt inspired people to pride because of the sacrifice, or because of the way that they were also like a storyteller and a kind of an inspirer, kind of like a soul of the nation in that way.
Okay.
They were a very, very kind of influential, notable person that then, because the whole sacrifice that then happened to that person, inspired a lot of kind of national pride. Okay. And that's how they ended up becoming a pride exemplar. That's the link to pride. I hope I've got that right. Is he an exemplar of pride?
Yeah.
Pride.
Yeah.
Oof. I had a moment then where I was like, is it loyalty?
No,
that's fine.
It's pride. And there seems to be a memorial built that is a school of traditional LARP performing arts surrounded by a beautiful garden.
So unfortunately, very recently, that school was destroyed.
By the cold sun.
That
made Howland's split root raise the writ of consecration itself. So
I looked at writs of consecration as well to find out what the puzzle pieces are for getting a writ of consecration going.
Yes.
In general terms, it creates a permanent place of pilgrimage or worship or inspiration related to a virtue, and there has to be something there to enchant. So there are these two pieces. You have to have True Liao, and you have to have the Synod's approval to, as they have here, get these writs of consecrations put down, and then you have to have somewhere to put them. Okay. And then the meeting of those two things outputs, whatever is appropriate in the situation.
Interesting.
But you're right, the destruction of this particular, already like a memorial, a gardens, a school, to this person that is an exemplar of pride, prompted the writ of consecration, I think, because they wanted to rebuild, the Navarre wanted to rebuild this place.
Yeah.
So why not consecrate it at the same time and celebrate pride, I think, was the idea.
Especially as a way to, again fight back against the cold sun. And it was something that was promoted in the Wind's last summit, of creating basically follies.
Yes.
And that artistic follies that would help fight against the cold sun by creating art.
Yeah, and that is something that I think I don't know whether or not it's proven to work necessarily. I know the cold sun hates creativity and is almost like drawn to it in battle and will try and destroy it, there is that kind of floating theory that creativity is also the the anthrax, the anether to the cold sun. Yeah. Or at the very least, it annoys it.
Yep, so, very much so. I think it's a sign of true thriving life, and I think the cold sun hates that. And so the suitable structure to create for this would require 30 wains of weirwood and 90 crowns of labour, and it would take 3 months to complete. And then it would be suitable for consecration. Yes. So it's got to be built first, and it could
be one of 3 locations.
It could be in, yeah.
So the idea stems from this notion of rebuilding the garden and the school, but they have identified, because it is actually about a rite of consecration relating to Geralt Brackensong and not that specific school. Yes. There are 3 possible relevant locations that can be established that would serve not the same purpose, because they would each be something different, but that would serve enough of a similar purpose that they could all be consecrated in the same way.
Though if you think about it, a bunch of like kids or like young adults or whatever just had like their school burned down, and what if their school is just like rebuilt like in a completely other like location, like a different country, and they're like, cool, I can't go to school anymore.
I have a feeling that some of the other options aren't even schools or anything, so it's just
I think it is still the school would teach music and performing arts and be surrounded by a garden.
So, where are you looking? Sorry.
Or are there options?
There are going to be options, yeah.
I see. Okay. Before we move on to those, shall I read out the rite of consecration?
Yes, very important if you want to raise your own rite of consecration, because this is how a successful one is worded.
Yes, so this is from Halwyn Splitroot. The cold sun have desecrated the corpse glade of the exemplar of pride, Geralt Brackensong. This affront to the Empire's pride cannot be borne. The time has come to enshrine the warrior who slew the purple Valorn heart of Yognarar at the return. The time has come for a consecrated memorial to the artisan who forged the legendary Geralt's barb. The time has come for the wider Empire to be inspired by the bard, who encouraged all citizens to take pride in their cultures through his long-lasting songs and stories. Let the Empire's pride ring forth, and from the ashes of the cold sun's blasphemies, we will create a brighter dawn in the example of Geralt Brackensong.
Yeah, I think that's very nice. I think it's it's interesting because you could have gone a lot of ways with this potential, a lot of ways to react to this thing happening. Yeah. And the notion that the first thing that the Navarre do is say that they're still, this doesn't detract in any way from who they are or what they stand for, or what anyone else should stand for, or how this threat should impact them. People should still be proud of who they are and their cultures, and they should still celebrate them. I think it's a great message.
Yeah, definitely. And should we see? Oh. It looks like
those are the 3 options. So the idea is that whatever one of the 3. So there are only 3 places that this potential consecration can be built. Yes. This is the wording for each of those individual 3 places. Okay. If one achieves, whatever majority it needs to, then it will go forward. If multiple are proposed, then whichever achieves the widest margin will go forward. Interesting.
It would be interesting to see if there are fights over it, or whether they try and come to an agreement in their nation's assembly before putting something forward. Or because I think to throw all of these out there and try and prioritise one place without real discussion first could cause a lot of issues.
It's interesting because theoretically it's a Pride Assembly issue. Yeah. The Pride Assembly should meet and be discussing it. Theoretically, is it a national issue? Should the Navarre Assembly be meeting and discussing it? And ultimately, it makes me think of, because we're League Ambition bishops, priests, whatever you like to call it, it makes me think of seeing a lot of familiar faces in the League Assembly and the Ambition Assembly, because a good portion of Ambition priests are league.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether a good portion of Navarre priests are pride. I wonder whether that's kind of like the driving thing here. I don't know. That's a complete guess.
I think it might be vigilance. I think there's a lot of vigilance in Navarre. That's their like main kind of thing. But there could still be a lot of pride.
Yeah.
I think
and there's a lot of them as well.
Yeah, there's loads of Navarre. So, okay. So these are. But let's instead of like reading through these, if you're interested in putting one of these forward, then go and read the winds and see like these individually.
Copy down the wording. It's important.
Copy down the wording. But we'll go through the general idea of what each one represents. So the first first voice glade in Miaran, in Oakways. Okay, so. It's a school. Okay, this is where the original one was.
Yes, okay. This is the school that has now been razed to the ground by the cold sun.
So now they want to bring it back with a bigger, better school and garden.
There's going to be balconies. There's going to be rope ladders. There's going to be brass bands.
Wonderful.
That's everything. I think
that's all you need.
These are the big three things that they're going to expand into.
Okay, great, and we've got basically bring it back, bigger and better. Yeah. That is the kind of simple, straightforward. Yeah. This is what it is for Miaran.
Yeah, one of the things that I think I struggled with these particular writs of consecration across all of the relevant winds is I like to understand what the mechanical benefit is. Because if I know, for example, when you build something or do something, it'll bring in 5 wains of mithril. I'm like, okay, I know what that is. I contextually in the world, I understand that.
Yeah.
That's just me. I like to put things in boxes and put them away. The thing that happens here, and it happens multiple times throughout the options, is that this particular thing says it would serve as a place of pilgrimage for those who have seen the things they love ruined by the heartless eternal, providing reassurance that the beauty of the orc and human spirits can never truly be burnt away. Which sounds beautiful, sounds lovely. We do need a place for people to come together and say the cold sun isn't the end of the world. But what's the mechanical outcome of that? I'm like, there might not be one, or there might be one, but it might be hidden. And I'm like, I don't actually know what that does. I don't know what decision we're making.
So I think this is one of these kind of wins where they're like, here are some choices. These choices will have like things that result from them. Yeah. But because these writ of consecrations are such new things, we're not going to tell you exactly what they are, what to expect. I think we're going to learn from like maybe even from a couple of like the other wins as well in this. Yeah. Like the kind of benefits that could be put in place.
Yeah.
It will likely, I think, be something that benefits people who are in the specific area.
Yeah.
So it might be like priests of pride in this
in Miaran.
Yeah, in Miaran or Hisinia or whatever, you get 2 extra votes and an extra layout. It could be something like that. Something like that, where it's like you get these extra things.
I think you're right. I think writs of consecration are such a new thing. They are still. We are all still trying to find out what they do. So no, I think that makes sense. I think it does this thing. Yeah. What does that mean? Let's find out. Pick a place based on what you feel is best.
And if you think about it, that's really powerful. It takes a truly owl, and a truly owl has to do something important.
Yeah,
it is one of those like got little golden tickets in the game.
Yeah,
where you get to have like past life vision and things like that. And now, having this writ of consecration, it means that not only will you benefit, like the benefits will like continue on, and they will affect like whoever's in that land, in that space.
Yeah.
And so like that is a really strong effect if you are like, oh, now everyone in this territory has like these extra things.
Yeah.
These extra powers to be able to put forward, like have genuine more force in the game.
And when you think about it in this context, it's all about things being destroyed by the cold, particularly first voice glade, things being destroyed by the cold sun, and still feeling pride, still knowing that the world keeps turning.
Yeah.
That's incredibly valuable as a place of refuge, if nothing else.
Yeah, imagine if it is like you get extra votes for being in this place that has the rite of consecration, and if you're a pride priest, then within the pride assembly, all of the Novari votes suddenly become quite important.
Yeah.
And so, in kind of no matter what, you might just like find yourself thinking about the Navarre when you go to that meeting to try and be like what might be persuasive to them.
Yeah.
If you were aware of this sort of thing and you see like they have a lot more votes, it seems, than
I think it really does depend, because this is supposed to be something that lasts forever as well. So
exactly.
Next, option 2.
Yes, is in Hessinia, and it's Foxton Steading.
Yes, so this is where, looking at all these different kind of places, there was originally a school which was established in Geralt's honour. This is where Geralt lived for obviously did a lot of travelling and things like that. It mentions in his 30s he settled down to study the way, became a guide, offered support to people. So this is sort of where he lived. We would be doing the same thing. We'd be building a school and potentially a shrine. And I think there is a greater focus at Foxton Steading, not on providing, for example, a place of refuge and reflection in relation to the cold sun, but more on the focus of Geralt's storytelling and music, as I understand it. So it shines more of a focus on being proud about that aspect of his legacy.
It sounds more like a bit of a church as well, in the way it's sort of inviting the guides, which are like the Navari priests. Yeah. It says like this is a place for people to seek like counsel and have this like spiritual place as well. So it has a sort of a different layer on top of it, as well as being the school.
Yeah.
I think that's quite interesting. There's a mention here of the Serrani wizards as well. Is it just an example? It would encourage more guides to reach out to those who are unhappy in their lives.
I think it's an example of when that has happened, when they've reached out.
Interesting. So yeah, I think it is more about the priest like being able to give counsel and having a sort of hub to do that.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. I think that maybe that would have more of a potential like knock-on effect. And obviously they kind of want to balance out these decisions, because some people might be like, well, obviously you just rebuild it in the place that it was, but then we've got to sprinkle in a little
if you rebuild it where it was, you're shining the spotlight just on the cold sun, basically. Whereas you could shine it on this, as you say. I think actually your summary is probably more accurate than mine. It doesn't seem to be too heavily related to the kind of songs and stories element. It is more related to being this hub for priests, guides and things like that.
Yeah, for like the virtues to be more central. It even talks about philosophical classes as well. So it becomes a sort of like church school almost as well.
And then again, for me, as a person, I'm like, but what does that mean? And there is no answer to that. Yeah,
because that comes further down the line. Yes. And there might be more decisions to make further down the line as well. But this is just the very start, the very embers of this. And then we've got the third, which is Return.
In Theirunen.
Yes.
So this is where Geralt died, I believe. This is the location that he was defending against an Eternal. The Eternal, Jorgnagracht or something like that, was trying to rouse Valorn, was trying to spur them to action, and the plan was thwarted in no small part because of Geralt's sacrifice. So the idea is that this is an appropriate place to establish a school. This is where I'm remembering it. This is the school focused on teaching and preserving Navarre stories and songs about fighting the Valorn and about the nature of sacrifice.
It sounds like it's a big war memorial with a big war school next to it, to be like, we're gonna fight the Valorn, kill them. And then it'd be interesting to consider that alongside the discussions around like what the Navarre people will be without the Valorn. Yeah. Because it's like, well, what will this school be? Is this a school? Is going to become a school of history?
I think that's a great point, because imagine, this situation where the Navarre are being posed this question now of what are you without the Valorn to fight. And the Var quite rightfully are saying, well, our culture isn't so reductive as to, quiver and quail at that question. Of course we have plenty of culture and things like that without it. And then, when immediately presented with a cultural opportunity, do they immediately choose to be like, the Valorn suck? And it's kind of like, but again, let's take that and go back to the question, what else is there to you? Because there is plenty to the Navarre beyond just the Valorn. But I think you're right, it's a great opportunity for whoever chooses where this, as an assembly, where they choose this school to go, to consider that every decision they make from this point forward should be one that prepares for a world without the Valorn in. Because that's the point.
Yeah, and it becomes like their identity still.
Yeah.
I think as well, obviously this kind of turns more towards the Valorn. But if we consider the threat that took away the place, the Cold Sun, I don't think a sort of a school built around war stories and history, and then teach people to fight, is necessarily going to be something that would perturb the Cold Sun.
No,
it's almost. I think the Cold Sun would be like, yeah, death, destruction, go get eaten by the Valorn.
Yeah, I think we're straying dangerously close to some opinions, but we can have opinions.
We can have opinions.
I
I
definitely think that now, because now you've put it in the context of what does the Navarre culture look like without the Valorn. I see option 3 as we're still stuck on the Valorn. I see option 2 as we just move from threat to threat. No, option 1 as we just move from threat to threat. And I see option 2 as actually building a future.
Yeah,
trying to build a future that doesn't necessarily have conflict inside of it.
And it's interesting because it looks more towards faith, and that could even have been like a knock-on effect of the Emperor's speech.
Yeah.
Again, that like, we are the virtuous, we are the rightful virtuous, and everyone else should. So yeah.
This is limited to the spring equinox, the upcoming event. You have to decide by then, basically.
Okay.
If you do not decide by then, you have to go back and get another writ of consecration approved.
Yeah.
So you have to start from the beginning again.
Okay, so it is, but also it is both creating the inspirational location and a commission is also required for that. So that's worth thinking about when it comes to going to the Senate and asking for a commission.
Yeah, putting it to the Senate and saying we're going to lose this opportunity if we don't strike now while the iron is hot. But pointedly here, it needs a commission because nowhere actually exists that is appropriate. All 3 of these options are places that are going to be built or rebuilt. So that is why a commission slot is required. It is not inherent to a writ of consecration.
Yeah.
Because if there exists somewhere already that is appropriate, then you wouldn't need a commission slot. That will be relevant in an upcoming wind very shortly.
Okay, I think that's good. I think we're done with like the Pride of Geralt Bracken's song.
I'm looking forward to seeing what the Navarre decide to do.
Yeah.
And then when they make a decision, questioning what that means for the future of their culture beyond the Valorn. Like a bit of a punchy point to have an argument with the Navarre or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so we move forward onto the ambition of Thrace.
Yes.
And this was the one that we had an influence over. And I remember it being quite an easy one, really.
Yeah.
I remember in the Ambition Assembly, I don't know how much, I guess it's something that's happened, so it was kind of brought up in the Assembly, and people were kind of like, yeah. And then a couple of people were like, should we also like speak to the orcs?
Yeah.
There's not actually an orc in the room now, maybe we need to, and then like saying, yeah, we should definitely do that. And so
I think I think it's voted with an overwhelming majority with 0 against.
Yeah.
So I think it sort of is obvious on the face of it that people really approved of this. I think I'm going to scroll down to check. Might just be saying things, and it might. 352 to 0. So overwhelming majority.
That's very good.
But. Before we go into it, did you want to do the parchment text?
Yes. What are we doing for the is it like London kind of?
London.
Like a bit of a geezer.
Yeah. My voice might be better enough to weigh in, to join in.
Yeah.
Is there more
It's a
than one
loud,
person?
stenorious voice.
Stenorious.
Make sure it's stenorious.
What is stenorious? If there's anyone in chat, can you tell me what stenorious means? I think I used to have a teacher called Mr. Stenorious. He was very quickly looks up what stenorious means. That.
There might be others, I'm sure. Yeah, we can.
Oh, is it like a stern voice, perhaps? But I don't know. I'm
Shall we look
guessing.
up what stenorious means?
Shall I? I'll do it on my phone.
We can just do a little googly Google. Loud and powerful.
Excellent. Okay.
Fantastic.
We've learned a word today. Okay, I'll try and read this if that's okay. I'll give it a go. What do you want to do? Do you want some of this? Do you want some
If you'd like to read it.
What was I? Now I have to figure out Cockney accent. We do not know this Thrace, this great leader of whom you speak, said the orc in a loud, stentorious voice. And yet, from the tales you tell, it is clear that had we been so fortunate, his name would be written into the epic. We believe that he was your Ethangraw, someone who rose from nothing to become a great king. We would honour him in the same way we would our own ancestor. Whatever the sacrifice the Sunstorm Stepped would make to honour Thrace, the Ethangraw will match them stone for stone, blade for blade, and blood for blood. Anvor finally stopped speaking to let the other orc get a word in edgeways. Right. Well, thanks for that. It was an impressive speech, even if it did have the ring of something the miller had carefully memorised. I'll let the folks know that you've said that. From the way Anvor had delivered his pronouncement, you'd have thought that he was delivering an address to the throne, rather than doorstepping a slightly flustered preacher who was heading out to get a drink at the tavern. I'm sure if they go ahead, everyone will be really pleased to hear that the Sept will rally round. If the Ethangraw spoke the word as if it burned in his mouth. Well, yeah. Well, it's not a done deal yet. Lots of things have to be thought out. If, when, how, where, who. Like I say, lots of details to iron out. The Synod have spoken. The Sunstorm have spoken. The descendants of Thrace have spoken. Now it must be done. The ancestors must be honoured. Yeah, well, yeah. Preacher Grick struggled to try and explain the complexities of the situation, but looking at the miller's face, he doubted he was going to get anywhere. This Ethangraw didn't remotely understand Anvil politics. How was he even going to begin explaining that? Or the stuff with the True Liao and who was going to do that? Then inspiration hit. He must be done, clearly. Nobody doubts that. But think, right? When should it be done? The civil servants reckon that such a big move will inspire everyone when it's done. Everyone in the nation's going to pile in. We'll be able to build stuff like there's no tomorrow. And like you said, the Ethangraw will match us brick for brick, bowl for bowl, fish for fish. So the question is, right, should we do it now? Or is it better to wait a bit and stockpile all the materials so we can do it then? Grick winced as he saw Anvor's features cloud over. He couldn't quite remember what the big orc had said, but it had been something like that, hadn't it? Turned out it wasn't his faulty memory that was upsetting the po-faced Ethangraw. You would honour your greatest kind, your ancestor, but you want to wait until you've stockpiled enough bricks. The large Ethangraw was polite, but clearly incredulous at the suggestion. Grick just shrugged. Well, yeah, maybe. Everything I've been told says Thrace was ambitious. Oh, and we're only getting one shot at this. I don't reckon he'd want us to waste it. Interesting.
You were very... Something about your sore throat made that, like, second voice
Yeah.
very effective.
I was like, I've got to get in on the orcs while my throat's still not working properly.
Oh, very good. Okay. So, an exemplar of ambition.
Yes.
Very good.
So, I think I'll try and take the lead on this again, just because you read them back to front and I read them front to back. Thrace is an exemplar of ambition.
Yes.
I think Thrace actually came before... I don't know if he came before the Imperial Orcs joined the...
I think...
Came before, because what I do know is that Thrace is effectively... had radical policies such as orcs should not be slaves, which is no longer, obviously, a radical policy. So Thrace very famously paved the way for an independent imperial orc nation, not of slaves, and sadly, I think, died before any significant shred of that vision was realised, but really laid the tracks on which the train of ambition now run towards a greater future.
Yeah.
Train metaphor not really landing because they don't exist in this world, but yeah, basically, didn't want everyone to be slaves. Now no one is slaves. Seemed like a great fire starter.
Yeah. Like he seemed to basically pave the way for like orcs to liberate themselves and become part of their own nation and all that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, when I read through this, it is the same kind of format. They have agreed to do a rite of consecration celebrating Thrace. I'll be honest, I voted on this. I voted yes to it. I can't remember why now. Maybe it's just because rites of consecration are now a thing.
Yeah,
and we're doing them. But there wasn't a triggering event such as something to this person was burned down, was there?
No. There was a triggering event. It was the new change in the doctrine.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
the change of doctrine that recognised orcs and humans as effectively equal in eyes of the way.
There's no special human doctrine that makes humans
No.
better.
Well, it's not even orcs and humans; it's everyone.
Yeah, it's
It is
everyone.
Completely expansive.
So they're like, oh, now we can like make like Thrace an exemplar.
Yeah.
Because before I don't think you could make an orc an exemplar.
Wasn't Thrace? No, Thrace is an exemplar though, but just not had a rite of consecration.
Not a rite of consecration. Let me see.
Because I think if we just go up,
consecrate an inspirational site.
I'm going to go to Thrace.
Okay.
So Thrace was recognised in 379, so
379.
7 years ago.
Okay, so he was
an exemplar.
Yes.
But I don't think there was anything else that you can really do for orcs.
Yeah.
Beyond that point, but you're right. Triggering event. We can now go back and look at some famous virtuous orcs. Thrace comes up as an obvious choice.
Yeah.
Being that initial let's not be slaves guy. And yeah, and the rite of consecration went through.
Yeah, it did. So that was put forward. This rite of consecration was put forward through by Serusto Caeli Rezia de Tacito, on the behalf of Bloodcrow Rasp and his band.
Yes. So I don't think that orcs. I might be wrong. Can raise judgments at the Imperial Synod. I don't think. Certainly,
I think there is something definitely like there is a line between like orcs being like priests in the same way.
Yeah. And one thing I do know is that I don't think there are any orcs in the Ambition Assembly anyway.
No.
So the relevant rite of consecration in relation to being an Ambition exemplar could never have been raised right now. Except by someone already in the what's it called? Assembly. The Ambition Assembly on behalf of the orcs. So that's kind of why it's happened that way around. That's relevant later as well for this particular one. The fact that orcs cannot have a direct hand in the consecration itself. That is continuing to be relevant later on in this wind.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so
In this particular wind,
Yes.
we only managed to figure out one location.
Yep.
The idea was that they looked everywhere, and ultimately there's only one place that is appropriate, and it is Scarsind.
Yes, there is one suggestion in the actual original mandate that says we look to achieve this endeavour in Scarsind at the end of his journey, or in Varushka at its start. But maybe people are like, maybe not, where he was originally enslaved and all that kind of stuff. Put it in the place where it is the homeland, where people will really appreciate it, because the people, you know, they're orcs, and that is their
not only is it in the homeland, you know, it's the place where I think Thrace probably died if his journey came to an end there. So yeah, I think that's why it's really the only option.
Yeah.
I think that this is not necessarily going to be the same sort of structure. It's not, you know, it's not going to be a school. It's not going to be a war college or anything like that. It doesn't make sense for it to be that sort of thing.
Well, there's already a place.
Yes.
It's the Rookery. So it's the old. It says the old Hall of White Ravens has been expanded, which is a nest of buildings dedicated to orcs' understanding of their faith. A recessed fighting pit, a library, a museum. So it's all these different things. And let's see. And the Chamber of the Abyss is also there, which is, I think, where you can get closest to all the voices of the ancestors.
Of the ancestors, yes. I think, now I'm remembering this, I'm wondering whether, because there's already a thing here, as I kind of mentioned before, we might not need a commission to build anything. We'll confirm that as we go through. The kind of bit that's covered here is the bit that I was just talking about, which is that no orc is able to use true Liao. Well, Liao, true or otherwise. So because there would be a consecration ritual performed with true Liao to consecrate the place, an orc cannot do that. Orcs can't use Liao. It is poison to them. True Liao would probably kill an orc. Although I don't know anyone that's tried that in practice. It's far too valuable to do what a sword could do if you really wanted to kill someone. So the solution, most likely solution, pending anyone else suggesting anything else, is for a representative elected by the orcs, who is human, to consecrate the place on their behalf, in the understanding that that person will be being honoured themselves. They won't be doing the orcs a favour. It will be a great honour, and they will need to understand that in order to understand the gravitas of consecrating this place with the true Liao.
Okay, and the suggested mandate for this to happen is this is also a suggestion. You can add your own fluff to it, but this is the general.
This is the core. So PD know what you're trying to do.
Thrace laid the foundation of the Imperial Orcs nation, but died before he ever saw his people build on his legacy and inspiration. We send, named priest, with a dose of true Liao to consecrate the Legion's Rookery in Scarsind in the name of ambition. I don't know if this surpasses the need for the dose of true Liao having to be given by the gatekeepers.
I'm pretty sure it doesn't. So the idea is, and my understanding, you know, again, caveat could be wrong. My understanding is that whenever you see a judgment like this that says we send named priest with 25 doses of Liao, 50 doses of Liao, if you raise that and it passes in the summit that you are at, you have to go and get that Liao from somewhere. That person has to somehow collate all that and hand it in effectively, so they can do whatever pilgrimage has been stated. If they don't, it doesn't happen, which means that named priest needs to end up with a dose of true Liao. Who has it, I don't know. There's probably if they've agreed a writ of consecration for ambition, someone somewhere is probably holding on to a Liao.
Probably as the gatekeeper.
Earmarked for it. If not, you're right, you can apply to the gatekeepers to get some.
Because I imagine when we talk about those doses of Liao attached to mandates, you will come from basically the coffers.
It can do. See, that's the thing I don't understand, because it's not an insignificant amount of liao, and I'm wondering where it all comes from. I guess that it comes from people, comes from players, comes from citizens donating personal stashes, or larger priestly organisations donating a bit larger portions of it. I don't know if it comes from coffers or anything.
Well, there is the rewards come from basically the treasury, the virtue fund, the treasury, and that definitely could involve like a whole bunch of liao. There will definitely be like plenty of people who are sitting on like a lot of liao, and I imagine that like the treasury will have that in general. So I would assume that it comes from that.
I think I would definitely need to go, because what goes in and out of the virtue fund is actually public. Yeah. So I would probably go and look at the virtue fund. You can't get a dose of you can't do a judgment of rewarding to do this, because you need to have done it already to be rewarded for it. But I would love to see the reasons why people take money out of the virtue fund, because if it is just rewarding, that implies that it is not for that, because that would happen after. So I don't know. It's one of the things I'm confused about whenever I see it. Yeah,
I think it is just for rewarding the virtue fund.
I mean, when it says we send people with 25, 50, 75 doses, I'm very confused about where it comes from.
Where that specifically, like not the money for rewarding, but
how do we get that? Because I know where the money comes from. Because the money comes from Imperial auction off. When the Imperial auction off the true liao, the money goes into the virtue fund.
It's definitely worth asking. It might even be worth asking a civil servant, because they will know.
Yeah, I'm
just
like,
where does the liao?
Yeah, I want to do a motion that says that I'm going to send myself with 25 liao. Do I have to get that liao? Hopefully by next summit. By the next time we're doing the wins for the next summit after this one by E3, might know the answer to that one. That'll be something I can ask on the field.
Definitely, yeah. And here's the last thing. It says it will inspire the Imperial Orcs to a flurry of building and construction.
Yes. So this is where they were talking about saving up bricks and doing it all at once.
Yes. So while Orcs may not be able to use liao to create auras, they can certainly experience their power. So there is an idea that like there are all these auras. Often created by liao being used, and we as humans feel that very strongly. Orcs don't have the same effects, but all the same they feel a sense of power in that place. They feel that there is some effect in that place.
This one is a profound sense of destiny.
Yes. So it makes them want to build and create a legacy. It sounds like they're really pushing here for the Imperial Orcs, and from the winds we read yesterday, for the Imperial Orcs to really become like a civilization. They've got the mines, they've got like money coming in, they get like infrastructure.
Investing in infrastructure.
Yeah, they've got
absolutely.
like assets to their name, and now maybe they're going to be like building these things to really create a society and create this like civilization.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. This notion that I think it's really it's a really fantastic kind of flow of narrative where we see the Orcs, breaking the chains of slavery, claiming territory, establishing themselves independently, and then kind of moving into a different era where they start establishing infrastructure such as mines and forestry and things like that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it all gets unpicked and put in a nice flat line where we see Thrace at the beginning saying, I want the Orcs of this world to have a life that they choose. And then in the present day, they have that life that they are choosing. And that just empowers and inspires the Orcs to build really quickly, but be ambitious, do everything, be ambitious, and surge forward. I think that's a great kind of narrative.
It's very nice, and I'm interested to see the Orcs' response to that as well, because they might somewhat resist it. Some of them might feel against it. I feel like they've been very much in a place of survival, and that still comes across sometimes. There's a big connection to their past, and maybe it's time to look forward.
The same timing applies. The Writ of Consecration must be enacted at spring. If it doesn't, you have to go back to the original drawing board and get everyone to agree that Thrace is the person that is going to be consecrated to. That sort of ties into the comedic idea that now you know that the orcs are going to go into a flurry of building. Let's actually bank this one for now, and we'll come back to it later when we've got more bricks. And I think the idea of that is comical, as it were, because there's no guarantee that it'll have the same effect in the future. And that's not how celebrating someone's life works.
No.
It is not the case that you want to vote someone best orc of the year, and then when you find out that loads of people are going to be really happy, you say, well, we'll save that for a rainy day and then come back to it later. I don't think it really works like that. And I think if anyone tries to make the argument that they should save this flurry of building for a later date, laugh at them. You should laugh at them. I'm going to laugh at them.
Okay, so I think that's all good, and we can move on.
Yeah, to the last writ of consecration, not the last wind, but the last writ of consecration.
Yes. So this is the prosperity of good Walder.
Yeah. I would never steal your Marcher accent from you. So this text is entirely yours.
Just gotta get in the,
Gonna get in the headspace. But this one is about good Walder, paragon of prosperity.
Up there, top of his game, and he's from the very start of the Empire. All right. Picked him out of a hat. What? Simeon stared at the civil servant. He'd obviously misheard, so it was only fair to give the fellow a chance to correct himself. He knew these people didn't like him much, and they'd made it pretty clear that they didn't want all the help he'd given them, but this was beyond the pale. Yeah, there were loads. It was just impossible to tell which one had the best claim. Couldn't exactly run a prognostication on all of them, could we? Not with the Synod giving us so many to do at once. So in the end, Barry suggested we put them all in a hat and just pick a couple out. That's what we did. I was pleased with Corbin Thump's one mind. I reckon them greedy buggers clogging up the bourse could do with a bit of a thwacking.
Yeah, perfect.
A hat. Simeon was struggling to find the words to express their sense of outrage. Yeah, a hat. I think I've still got the hat we used. It's around here somewhere. Oh, there it is. No ore on it. Pity. Like I said, there were loads of them. Loads and loads and loads of them. Like half the merchants has a place we're tied to the good Walder within a country mile. And that chantry in Highgard that reckons they've got good Walder's thigh bone or something. That place over in Dawn with the trees. That well in Miaren. Them dry stone walls in Tacitor that he banged up by himself to prove a point. The lists were endless. Everyone with a bit of bone or magic apple or a fancy cooking pot. And Cudgels got a whole page on just sticks alone. So you just picked the 3 locations you're suggesting for the inspirational tomb of one of the Empire's most important paragons out of the hat. No, the old Marcher shook his head and screwed up his face to show how ridiculous that suggestion was. Synod picked that one. We pulled the other 2 out of the hat. Simeon's eyes narrowed and his lips pursed as he stared at the Marcher. The man just stared back at him with a deadpan expression like butter wouldn't melt in his mouth.
Perfect. So, did you read a little bit about good Walder as you were reading through? So what can you tell me about him?
He's about prosperity, but he's mainly about rewarding the good.
Yeah.
And hitting the unvirtuous with a stick.
Okay.
Yeah, that's his main goal.
That seems pretty straightforward.
There's an image here. In the modern empire, the image of a smiling man with a sack of fruit and corn, a fat money pouch, leaning on a stout cudgel, is a common symbol for prosperity in every nation, and that is the symbol of good Walder.
Yeah, because good Walder rewarded the virtuous and hit the unvirtuous with a stick.
Exactly.
Perfect. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's kind of just a less complex version of what we do now. So.
Exactly. All following his steps. They just get more and more complex and full of bureaucracy. So generosity and a big stick. We've got Ray Stone, who wrote the Writ of Consecration. Shall I read the specific one?
Yeah.
When Good Walder's orchard was created in 383 year end, it was with the stated intention that it later be raised as an inspirational tomb. it's past that time, Miss Road done. The Prosperity Assembly urges the consecration of Good Walder's orchard as an inspirational tomb, that the Good Walder's teachings of hard work and virtuous words may drive citizens across the empire in pursuit of true prosperity.
Yes. So one additional thing I've just remembered about Good Walder is that his tale of prosperity moved beyond the bounds of just the marchers. He is kind of a figure that shows up everywhere in some way, shape, or form, even if it's not directly him, sort of like in a parable or fable kind of way. The vibe shows up somewhere.
Yeah.
Despite the judgment or the writ of consecration saying that there is a place, I think they then went on to select 3 places.
Okay.
Because 2 of them came out of a hat. So they then basically, it's the same as the first writ of consecration.
Yes.
There are 3 different options with 3 different outcomes.
So also with this one, they first need to build Good Walder's Lodge. And that is a folly, so there has to be the commission first and also then the writ of consecration that's put in place.
So
with the dose of truly out.
Yes, so we're not building again, I'm going to refer back to the first one, we're not building a school, we're not building like a memorial, we're building Good Walder's Lodge.
Yes.
But where do we build it, right?
Where do we build it? And so the first option is Good Walder's Orchard. So that's the first one.
I know, actually, sorry, I noticed this was formatted in a particularly strange way. Because if you scroll down, that is where the options begin. There, under inspiration. So if you scroll back up,
yes,
what it says here is, for whatever reason,
yes,
these are the guaranteed effects of Good Walder's Lodge.
Oh.
Then it goes on to detail the 3 places where it can go, with the additional effect of what happens if you place it in each of those 3 places.
Okay. So this is overall, I guess, because it's such a powerful figure.
Well established.
Yeah. And that literally, I think, was like a paragon that was around with in the time of like the first empress, maybe even. Yeah. So like at the very, very start of the empire. So rewarding the virtuous.
Yes. So this references the role of benefactors.
Okay.
If you haven't heard of the role of benefactors, don't worry, no one has.
Well.
The role of benefactors, because I checked this, is a thing that was created a while ago. With the idea was you are supposed. I don't think it rewards people, but you get to name virtuous citizens, and their name goes on the role of benefactors. If you click on role of benefactors and open it in a new tab, you will see everyone that we've managed to add to it. So it's just Hailwind, Bronwyn's Rest, and no one else, and they were added in 383. And that's
because it's just like people being like, these people are good.
Yeah.
But it doesn't require...
It requires a statement of principle.
So people are being... I think what's happened here mechanically is like, people are like, why am I wasting my 1 mandate to put someone's name on a list
that doesn't do anything
when I could raise a judgment of rewarding and actually like concretely reward this person and call them out to the assembly.
So hailing Bromwell's West, you are the one and only person named on the roll of benefactors. Hopefully not forever, because if Good Walder's Lodge is built,
yes,
then it slightly changes.
Okay, so it names it like okay. Once each season, an assembly can.
So the Prosperity Assembly.
The Prosperity Assembly can use a statement of principle to name a virtuous citizen along with the deeds they've done. If it achieves a greater majority, the person will be marked with someone worthy of generosity or generosity of the virtuous. The Order of the Sack and other priests who preach prosperity would ensure the judgment was spread far and wide, especially amongst those who did business with the named individual.
Yes. So actually, this has a more useful effect now. So it is not just anyone can name a person, or a prosperity priest can name a person and add them to the roll of benefactors, and then their name sits there gathering dust. Now, because Good Walder's Lodge this is only if Good Walder's Lodge exists, then the Order of the Sack and other prosperity priests spread the word that this person, because you can only name 1 per season, this person for this season is very prosperous, you should go do business with them, and that has a very positive effect on their personal resource.
provided their personal resource was not upgraded over the coming season, it would be improved by 1 rank without needing to use any wains or money. If their personal resource was already upgraded, then it would increase by 3 ranks for this following season only.
Yeah, so, and this, like, again, I like to put things in mechanical terms.
Yes.
This is free. It doesn't cost anything to raise a judgment. It doesn't cost the Prosperity Assembly any money to raise a judgment and vote on it to say this person is particularly prosperous for these reasons.
Yeah.
And that, like, in a very indirect way, doesn't reward the person for being prosperous, but just shunts a lot of business their way and says, if you want to take advantage of this, you can.
Yeah.
And then they do, because their personal resource gets better.
As an ambition priest,
Yes.
who has very recently taken like quite a strong interest in prosperity and started preaching it, I really like this.
Yeah.
Because instead of being like, we are the synod and we reward you with X amount of money, it's saying, we are the Prosperity Assembly, and by naming you here and spreading your name wide in the nature of the prosperity that exists within the empire, those rewards will come to you tenfold. I really like that.
The power of community.
Yeah. It's like manifestation almost. Like, we're going to manifest for this person and they're going to get good things.
Yeah.
And it's
Imagine if there was, you know, priests in your local community that you knew were prosperity, they specialised in money, and they were like, honestly, do business with this person. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is the power the priests have, the power of vibes.
Yeah.
Kind of tailed off there, but the power of not convincing people, but just putting out intentions into the world.
Yeah, and
getting people to think about it.
I know you did say it costs nothing. It still takes one priest to be like, this person's important enough that I'm going to give my one statement of principle for this summit.
Yeah.
To this person.
Yeah.
So you still have to have like that amount of an effect on someone. It's not just something that's throwaway.
Yeah.
But it just means that you don't have to like put any,
put any money behind it. It doesn't cost money to make money. Yeah. I'm going to put 2 conflicting arguments forward together for this. This has got loads to dig into all of a sudden. This is just like one of the standard effects as well. I'm going to put forward one thing, which is that it is not, against my own words, it is not free to do because you need to find a prosperous and virtuous person. You know, this isn't just we couldn't find anyone actually prosperous, so we'll name David, and David will get the benefit of this thing. That is an abuse of power and potentially something you could be excommunicated for. So it actually needs to be like legitimate. If that's what I'm saying, they should actually be applying their power to judge people as prosperous. So there is a level of oversight and caution. But then I'm going to flip that on its head and say, what does it mean for the Prosperity Assembly if you can't find one person every summit? Is the word of the Prosperity Assembly so weak? It's not. Don't worry. But what would it be viewed as so weak if you couldn't even find a single virtuous citizen to name on the roll of benefactors?
Yeah.
I just thought of kind of like two opposing points as well.
It's quite interesting, yeah. And then we've got Punish the Wicked as another effect.
And I also have just realised, reading Punish the Wicked, this is literally Guildwalders rewarding the virtuous and then hitting the unvirtuous with a stick.
Yep.
So that's what's going on here.
Also, it says, the Fellows of the Stout Stick. Make sure everyone knows this. So there's literally like a little faction of people that stand by this. So if a judgment, so what is this?
This is a judgment of castigation or condemnation, which is bad. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what each of those does, whether or not it prevents people from voting, whether it's just this person's bad, you shouldn't really speak to them. But what it has the net effect of doing is giving greater weight to castigations or condemnations for judgments that receive a greater majority. The individuals get shunned, they lose ranks on their personal resource. If they were condemned, the penalty increases by 2. It's kind of like that. They're diametrically opposed. Reward the virtuous, punish the unvirtuous. We're rewarding people more and punishing people more.
Yeah.
We're making things more effective.
That sounds really cool. Okay, so
They suffer a 1 rank penalty of their personal resource. That is.
I'm going to take my personal resource down to 0.
So, and that's for castigation. And if they're condemned, their penalty. That penalty would increase 2 ranks. So 3. You would get 3 rank penalty.
Increase 2 ranks.
2. Oh, sorry. You'll get a 2 rank penalty.
Yeah. So I would go down to a -1 congregation, and I would owe someone Liao.
Gosh. So yeah, like that is the only way to end the penalty early would be prosperity. Oh, so the penalty can be ended early, but there has to be a sanction of vindication, which is still a quite difficult thing to put through, and still requires a whole priest to be like, this is my whole vote.
That's the thing. That's Good Walder's thing. Punish them, hit them with a stick.
Hit them with a stick.
If they're unvirtuous, why just castigate them and be like, you're a bad person? Hit them where it hurts.
Yeah, I actually really like this one.
Yeah.
Apparently,
I think there's a marcher that lives inside of you. Inside of this Liga somewhere.
Inside of us, inside of all of us is a marcher.
Inside of you there are 2 marchers. One is rewarding the virtuous and the other is hitting people with sticks.
I also am like, is this again calling me towards the prosperity?
Everything about prosperity seems to call to you.
Still yet to be persuaded. Well, I'm open. I'm going to be there.
I'm available. I'll be on the field. See you there.
I'm available. Come persuade me. Yeah, so... Okay, so the last one is the virtuous list.
Yes.
Okay.
I can't quite remember this one.
Okay. A true consecration to a paragon makes a powerful statement about the importance of rewarding hard working. Okay.
That's fine, I've got it. So this is a vibes one. This is another thing where it's like the rite of consecration is a new thing and we don't know quite what it will do yet. Okay. So the idea here is that, as it kind of summarises, there are other subtle benefits related to the politics of prosperity. So if anything is linked to prosperity, it might stand to benefit if Good Walder's Lodge is put in place. There'll be more attention, potentially. It could be anything of these things, or it could be none of them. It could be more attention paid to prosperity judgments.
Yeah.
Any position relating to prosperity, like the Basilisk of the Bourse and the Auditor of Senatorial Accountability,
which I quite like the sound of.
You quite like the sound of, will be paid more attention and oversight. Anything relating to prosperous judgments or inquisitions will have more weight. Prosperity will, in general terms, be at the fore of people's mind.
It's very interesting because I do feel that, well, at least sort of from what I've seen, like prosperity doesn't feel like it's a huge section for priesthood or like active priesthood.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna learn more obviously when I go to the Prosperity Assembly, but like that is interesting. I feel like maybe they are trying to encourage people more in the same way that the new doctrine put a loads more weight towards the way.
Yes.
The what is it called? The
way.
The sort of like the virtue, the root of virtue of the priest of the way.
Sure.
I think is just the term for it. But like because they were kind of like
I see what you mean. Yeah, they were kind of
like put as like the ones that couldn't decide or something,
but actually give them more pull. Yeah.
It really gives them pull, and like knowing that they can change doctrine, like it shows like this is the kind of power that you can have, and we're going to reward that someone has like gone ahead and used this power as well. Yeah. Great.
So
yes,
then that is what will happen if Good Walder's Lodge is put in place. Depending on the place that they choose, and there are 3 options, there will be additional effects.
So the first one is for Good Walder's Orchard, which is the one that was suggested by the original mandate by the Marchers. And this is in Mitwald.
And this is where Good Walder's bones are supposed to be. Lots of mythos surrounding where exactly this is. But this is supposed to be where Good Walder's bones are. I think there was a miracle there that supported the fact that Good Walder might be resting there. There was something to do with Goldwalder that was happening, and the trees of the orchard famously never produced fruit, and all of a sudden they did. They creaked with the weight of apples, I believe. And this follows true to a very similar story that comes up later, where Good Walder gifted a pot of soup that never ended and things like that. So the idea is that this is where his bones are, so it would be an appropriate place to have the lodge.
Very cool. And are there any extra like effects of this?
So I'm just reading what the controversy is.
Okay.
That's it. So there is no additional effect to here.
Yes.
But there is, and I think this came up. Might be the thing coming back in. There's an existing structure there. There's already a Goodwaller gift shop where you can buy the pot of never-ending soup, which is one of those things that has the liquid in the sides, and you press it and it like goes up and down, and things like that. There's already a gift shop to Goodwaller there. That can very swiftly be converted into a lodge.
Fantastic.
So there are no additional effects. There's some roleplay things here where it's like, is this actually a good place? Is it not a good place? But mechanically, the key thing is that you won't have to convince a senator, because there doesn't have to be a commission slot.
Okay, I do want to look at like the construction. What is it? Is it just like kind of, because there is a keep of it? I guess like it is like a specific.
It's a named specific thing with an imperial title associated with it.
Fair. Okay.
And it has a gift shop.
Wonderful. And then we've got Corwin's Thump, which is the stick. That's in Upwold. And obviously it's about him being punishing.
This is the more punishment side of him.
Yes.
So.
Right, let's have a look at what this is.
Oh, I think I'm reading this and I'm like, it feels like I'm reading it for the first time. I might have mentally skipped over it.
Possibly. It will focus more on the.
So it's based on another miracle, another tale of Goodwaller.
Yes.
So the tale is that there was a miserable, inhospitable, very poor host, very miserly, not very prosperous. Goodwaller visited and was in disguise as a labourer, did a bunch of hard work, and it turned out that this particularly stingy landowner charged the labourers for every cup of water from the well, even in the height of summer. And so when Goodwaller went to get his wages for working for a week, he found that there was a huge deduction for water during the height of summer. So, of course, he got out his stick and said, this isn't very virtuous, and beat him continuously until he turned into a flock of crows and flew away. This is a very cool little capstone to that fable. To this day, some march parents tell their children that the wicked crows that eat the seed in spring are descended from Corwin, the landowner, calling his name in vain to attempt to convince Goodwaller to return and restore them to human shape. So yeah, the birds that prey on the seeds are this miserly old man who tries to charge for water from a well.
I feel like I know that pain, because I was like having to like rap on our window to prevent the pigeons from eating the flax. Yeah. So really feel that one in my bones. Yeah. I felt like a real farmer this year.
Yeah, we've done a lot.
I'm like, oh, birds, and then I'm like, get off my crop.
This is a very obviously completely out of character thing, but we planted a bunch of vegetables and things in our garden.
I'm not in character.
Not in character thing. Planted a bunch of things, a bunch of vegetables are growing, and you're right. We've had invasive bird, not invasive. They weren't that bad, but they did try and eat the seed when we planted it. We've had one particularly egregious cat attempt to
like a freshly it's not tilled, but a freshly hoed bed
by the cat.
Looks quite like a nice large litter box to a cat, I think.
Unfortunately. So I as far as I'm concerned, Corwin can remain as a crow. But that's not the point, sorry. The idea is that you can build something here. Did you just read that last thing and say what it does?
So it's focused on the angrier inspiration. So it's if there are additional effects, it will focus more on the need to identify and expose the thieving bandit, the lazy wastrel, the graping miser. So this is like we haven't got the specifics, but it's going to be
another loosey goosey one. If you want to focus on the things where you hit people with sticks, build in the place where you famously hit someone with a stick so hard that he turned into a bird.
Exactly, a bunch of birds. Okay, so...
And the Abbey of Harry's Pot is the last one. So, again, in order, you've gone where he's buried, the orchard, celebrating the fact that he hits people, so like punish the unvirtuous. The Abbey of Harry's Pot is rewarding the virtuous, and this is the story about the never-ending pot of soup.
Yes, so, this is, so Goodwalder came to this village, and he went door to door offering to do hard labour for a bit of food and a bit of drink to take refuge from the miserable rain because it was a famine. And he got turned away until he came to a farm run by Harry of Badnock, a curmudgeon, known for the furious barking of her dogs. Harry put him to work, doing fences, gathering stones, chopping firewood, carrying water, and Goodwalder did it all without complaining.
What a legend.
Yes. It really pulled himself up by his bootstraps. And
there were plenty of firm handshakes that day.
Plenty of firm handshakes. And was invited to join Harry and her family that evening. But they had...
So they had no more than their neighbours. It was a famine.
It was a famine, and they prepared a soup that was as much stone as it was broth.
Yes.
But
I hate it when there's nothing in the fridge. You know, you sort of open a fridge and there's nothing in, you close it and open it again, lower your expectations.
Yeah.
Imagine
lower them to the ground.
Lower them all the way to the ground and pick up a rock and put it in your food.
Yeah.
That's where they got to.
Yeah. But gave him a generous bowl of it, nonetheless. Goodwalder asked for seconds, but she gave him a second bowl, even though it's a famine. And the youngest asked for the same, another bowl's provided, and the pot seemed to keep providing the soup and become a sort of never-ending pot.
And I think the soup got better and better, more and more tasty as time went by. Yeah.
Wonderful. Which reminds me of pottage, which is like that old. It's like what you would have been served in a tavern, which is essentially like a never-ending soup. They'll just have a big like cauldron full of stuff,
stew.
and they just keep. It's just constantly
like,
on the boil,
yeah.
and they just throw things in as they go, and then it gets turned out. So it becomes its own thing.
Yeah. The never-ending pot lasted all the way through the famine, all the way through the cold months, all the way into summer, and all the way into spring. And when the first harvest was planted and things began to look a lot better, it finally put out, for want of a better word, the last bit of soup, which was apparently the best meal that anyone's ever had.
Wow.
Rewarding the virtuous.
So it seems to be. It says that there'll be an aura that is durable and strong, and it will all be focused on the need to ensure that anyone who's deserving has their fair share. And people who do hard work can claim their reward.
Yeah. What I'll just make clear is that the pot still exists. That's the idea. So there's an abbot that has the pot, and so that is where you would build this memorial to Goodwalder.
Very cool.
You can go see the pot.
Itself.
Obviously, people go, then the aura affects them, so that's why people would focus more on the aspect of rewarding the virtuous.
Very nice. Okay.
Timing. So must be enacted at the spring equinox, as before. A commission is always required unless there is an existing location there. And work can begin immediately as soon as a slot is assigned. So pretty much the same as the timing and all the other stuff. And you have a little bit extra Marcher role play to read.
Exactly. Right. Afterwards, they drank their tea together in silence, enjoying one another's company. "Did you really pick the names out of a hat?" Mary asked. Her husband guffawed. "Nah, of course not. Took us bloody forever that we're with the helps of the folks from Mead and Hintown fella. Orchard has a good claim as any,
and the other 2 are good solid stories. But I weren't telling him that. He were proper getting on my last nerve with all that. If I could just make a suggestion, and would it help if I... Bobbins. Mary cocked an eyebrow and her husband looked a little sheepish, knowing he'd been acting like a child rather than a respectful civil servant. Lovely spot of tea, this, he said in a brave attempt to change the subject. Said his wife. They continued to drink, and the outside rain continued to fall.
I knew he was lying when he said he got it out that hat.
It's a very macho thing.
I felt it in my bones.
To be like, don't question me.
Yeah, it's very... Never underestimate a macho. I feel like a lot of people do. And no, it's not... You know, when people are like, have you thought about this thing? It's like... Yeah. It's good Walder. It's their person.
Yeah. It's their guy.
So the role of benefactors. We can get rid of that.
We can get rid of that guy.
So we are on the last wind of fortune, which is nothing to do with the writ of consecration.
Yes. Okay. So this is called Fighting Fish. And this is again another little marcher.
I won't take it from you then. You can head dive on in. All
right. I'm sure you've got a good March accent as well.
March accent. I was looking for orcs. I wanted to do some more orc voices.
It was quite fun actually. Yeah. And paint the eel with a piece cut out of its tail. That's important. Rodri stared at the proprietor of Sykes End, as it was called now. He'd never been to the Ottery himself. It was awfully long away. 2 days walk if you stopped off at Sallow. He'd always heard that folks were strange. The proof here was now in his pudding. It's a nicked eel, you see. Do you see? The artist nodded slowly. A quiet voice inside his head told him just to shut up. Take the man's money and paint the bloody sign for him. Arguing with customers was never a good idea. Right, so we're celebrating poachers now, are we? He heard himself saying. His mouth was always getting him into trouble. The point is, it's like that Friar Luke says it. We don't have to prove out to them. It's them, they've got to prove themselves to us. If they want our loyalty, then they can bloody well earn it. Pride in small things, loyalty in great ones. Do you see? Not really, he said, shaking his head. Look, Bushel Sykes showed him what'll happen if it were not tripped right. He showed us that we can fight for ourselves if we want. As long as the Empire deserves our loyalty, then we'll pay our taxes and cause no trouble. Shut up, he thought. Stop talking. Take the fool's money and shut up. And if they don't, he queried, then we'll do what Shell said we should have done the first time. Take our bills and show 'em what for. He stared at the barkeep's enthusiasm and tried to keep the disbelief out of his voice. The ageing publican was in bad shape. It looked like the only bill he'd ever seen was the one from the brewery. He tried to imagine the fellow in a brig, holding the line against an advancing imperial army. Your job is to paint signs, the voice said in his head, over and over and over. Just paint the damn signs. He stopped, bit his tongue, and drew in a deep breath. Right. Nicked eel. No problem. 5 crowns. I'll have it ready for you by Tuesday.
Perfect. So, I remember this one, but you might remember more. You might have had more of a read of it. So what's it all about?
So Bushel Sykes, this is very closely linked to all of the Matilda Fisher stuff.
Yes, this goes back a way.
Yes, so Bushel Sykes lived and died in Bregasland, and Matilda Fisher wanted to kind of liberate Bregasland from the Empire, and basically end up bringing the Yatun in.
Yeah,
to potentially take over Bregasland. That was a whole thing. But Bushel Sykes was loyal to the last, as it says literally in this little photo. Yeah. And I do love loyal to the last, our Bushel.
Our Bushel.
And the face, I think, is Matt Pennington.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. I think it is.
Loyal to the last.
Loyal to the last. And Bushel Sykes came to his end not too long ago.
Sadly.
Because he was standing his ground in a pub.
Yeah.
He literally never left Breggers Land.
In what is called now Sykes End.
Which is now called Sykes End.
They changed the name of the pub, and now it's a great name for a pub now, Sykes End.
But yeah, he got taken by, I believe, like, Imperial soldiers or something.
Yeah, well, he didn't get taken. He just fought.
Yeah, he fought and, killed.
I think, the background is super convoluted, I think, in my mind for this one.
Yeah.
Because, you're right. The idea was that the Yatoon were invading Breggers Land. Matilda Fisher, who was a marcher, allied with the Yatoon to say, you can take it over, we want to be independent. Bushel Sykes was a person who never did that. I don't think Bushel Sykes ever advocated for allying with the Yatoon, but Bushel Sykes was like, we should still be an independent Breggers Land.
Yeah, he's like, Breggers Land for Breggers Land, and that is it. Like, that's all his kind of thing is.
Yeah, it's like a Breggers exit kind of thing.
Yeah, part of me wants to almost, not to, I don't want to necessarily be too political, but like a sort of a Farage figure.
Yeah.
You know? Where he's like, I stand for this.
Breggers Land as well. And the idea was that the rebellion by Matilda Fisher didn't go well. She lost. This was a big problem for Breggers Land because there were a number of large houses in Breggers Land that actually agreed with Bushel Sykes and Matilda Fisher. So they turned on the Empire. Yeah. And then after the Yatoon invasion was repelled and Matilda Fisher was killed, she died at no, she didn't. Did she die at Anvil?
Yeah,
or she died. Well, she might have died in Anvil.
She was brought to Anvil
taken
to be
somewhere else to be buried. But anyway, after that happened, those houses were then subsequently punished, and it was a pretty big feels bad moment in Breggers Land because we went from having all of this kind of gusto and energy towards establishing independence to, no, you're still part of the Empire and you're being punished for wanting that.
And having like magistrates everywhere and making sure no rebellions happening.
Yeah, so a bunch of big houses got cut down. Some people got let off lighter than the others. There was general discontent. Fortunately, enter Emperor Vesna to save the day.
Yeah.
The policy of unity released in the Imperial Statement meant that a lot of places sort of calmed down. However, it didn't solve the issue of a particularly sticky Bushel Sykes who never ever relented his position.
So people think that he represents like the ultimate loyalty, and there was potentially an idea that he could become an exemplar, but that was squished last summit. The line here, this is such a like more casually written, more marchally written, and there is literally just the sentence of, nobody actually recognised the old arsehole as an exemplar, thank goodness. Not a proper recognition. And so people are still, it's like, he's not been recognised as this. But they are like, but should there still be arguments over this? Should we still be like defining loyalty really? Because if we don't see basically loyalty for loyalty's sake, is that virtuous? Or does it have to be loyalty in service of something? Because if we're not recognising someone who is so loyal as an exemplar, then what is loyalty to the Empire?
Because there's this argument that you might not have liked Bushel Sykes' brand of loyalty. You might not have liked the fact that he was loyal not to the Empire but to his region, and actually wanted to see the region cede and become independent above everything. I mean, I suppose there's an argument to say there is a difference between being loyal to one's home and wanting to cede and be independent. You know, I can be loyal to Lee while being part of the Empire. The two aren't necessarily diametrically opposed. But it created a lot of discussion around what is loyalty. Is this person not loyal? If this person is loyal, why aren't they an exemplar?
Yeah, and I'm wondering, shall I read out the original mandate?
So that one that starts loyalty cannot be presumed.
Yes.
I think, so it mentions it up there. So that in this judgment they set the meter for the loyalty assembly. Didn't achieve a greater majority. Didn't need one because, as you say, everyone was already talking about it.
Yes. So this was put out. Didn't make anyone an exemplar or anything, but it is just like out there. So Loyalty cannot be presumed or coerced.
This was raised by a highborn.
Oh, it says Brother Luke. Oh, Brother Luke. Okay, it's Brother Luke. Loyalty cannot be presumed or coerced, but can be inspired. We, the Empire, must strive to be the spark that ignites the flame of loyalty in the hearts of its people. Bushel Sykes was loyal to a dream of a free Bregas land. His unwavering devotion proven by the miracle of the spontaneous dedication, a true aura of loyalty. If the Empire upholds the oath it made in its constitution to serve and protect its people, providing the freedom, prosperity, and dignity it promises, then it will inspire the strength of loyalty that Bushel Sykes displayed. The virtuous build up their fellows, they do not tear them down. I challenge the Empire to find ways to heal the rifts that are turning people's hearts away from us.
I know that I really like that statement because it's just changed my opinion on the spot. I think literally I had just said, surely, you know, loyalty for loyalty's sake, you can be loyal to Bregas land, but you don't have to be loyal to, you know, like I said, I can be loyal to League without being like, let's break free of this idea. But this notion that Bushel Sykes was loyal to the idea of a free Bregas land, that was what he was loyal to. That was the thing he was a bedfellow with and would never let go because of his absolute loyalty. I'm like, yeah, I think I agree with that. I actually think he was incredibly loyal. And I'm imagining a world where someone can be absolutely loyal, absolutely committed to an idea that you completely disagree with, and you can still say, I respect your loyalty for that. We're going to fight about this, but you are no less loyal.
Yeah, I think the other point this mandate like raises, which I think is really good, is like there's two sides to loyalty: those who are loyal and that which inspires loyalty. And with all the sort of like discontent, these like threats of rebellion, the actual rebellions in like Urizen and things like that, like there needs to be something that like unites and inspires. And I almost feel like the Empire as a whole needs to almost like create or sort of plant like this ideology that inspires people to loyalty.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take it another step as well, because I completely agree with all of that. Loyalty is hard because you have to take the ego out of it.
Yes.
There are plenty, I'm sure, of you know, your Toon, Cold Sun Scions that you could theoretically say you're an exemplar of loyalty. You're so loyal to your cause. Do I draw inspiration from it? Is it very relatable? Is a different question.
Yeah.
But it might be possible. It might be possible to look at the actions of someone like Bushel Sykes and say, I disagree with you, but your loyalty inspires me. I strive to be as loyal to my ideals as you were to your home, to the extent where you were, where you died for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think take the ego out of it. Forget the fact that this person was loyal to an idea that you disagree with, and celebrate the fact that they're loyal at all.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting, I feel, so later in this there are actually some concrete things that change things for the Loyalty Assembly, which is quite cool. Because all this talk about loyalty, I almost is like giving it energy. And so
it's drawing people's attention to it as a concept.
And so like we're not, you know, it's going to be an inspirational location, this like pub, but there's
sorry, are we building something? I didn't know.
No. But the pub is just like an inspirational location. There's no rite of consecration or anything like that. You know, like it's just that. It's just a pub that people are going to be like, oh yeah, cool. I do want to just read this box about the Bregas Rebellion. I think just sort of I think maybe updates on
the rebelling territories.
Yeah. To be clear, while the rebellious quality has spread to Ottermire, that doesn't mean there is more likely to be a rebellion anytime soon. Rather, it means that if Bregas land does rise in open rebellion to the Empire, if the imperial bodies catastrophically lose trust of the people of the territory or the marches, the results will be worse. But for now, it's just people romanticising stories of Bushel Sykes and vainly boasting that the Empire doesn't earn their loyalty, then they'll be inspired by Sykes' memory to take up arms. If Bregisland did start rebelling, it would now be worse than it would have been, but the outcome is no more likely to come about than it was before Brother Luke and the Loyalty Assembly acknowledged Bishop Sykes' virtue.
Yeah.
So it's just sort of...
So the discontent, that willingness to take up arms is growing, but there's nothing that makes it more likely.
Yes. And so the actual effect here is statements of principle with a greater majority raised in the Loyalty Assembly will have more reach. I think there's also there might have been something about their votes. I just need to double check through this. So first of all, following the spring equinox, every congregation where the priest preaches loyalty will achieve an additional liao and 2 additional votes in the Imperial Synod. So people want to hear about loyalty now.
They're paying more attention. And so the Assembly of Loyalty says following the spring equinox, so it might be like afterwards. One thing I just find this interesting, the idea that you get additional liao and additional votes, and I'm like, where does it come from? It comes from the idea that your congregation of people at home, the people you preach to, is literally bigger.
Yeah.
There are more people coming to church and listening to you preach about loyalty because it is part of the zeitgeist at the moment.
Because they're having arguments at the pub and then being like, okay, let's go talk to somebody who knows about it. Let's go listen to someone.
There are people having arguments about loyalty in the pub, so they turn to the table behind them where the local priest is having a drink as well, and they're like, Father, what's loyalty? And then they start joining in on the congregation of religious discussions, which is where the liao and the extra votes are generated from.
Yeah.
So I think that's just like, I like that in-game way of doing. It's not over the top. It's not ridiculous. It just really does show that increased interest.
Yeah, and that rounds up these 4 wins.
Sorry, there are no other benefits to the loyalty thing.
I believe it is just that. So there's a few more eyes. Any judgments?
Any judgments are more effective.
Yeah, basically. Any member of the Assembly can raise a supporting mandate for consideration when it comes to loyalty. So, let me see. Oh, it's what they're doing with the Eyes of Loyalty, which is a specific item, and only the Cardinal of Loyalty could have used these before.
It's like an ability. So I remember following the Eyes of Loyalty. If you click on it, it sends you down a bit of a rabbit hole. To be honest, it sends you to this judgment where there are some additional powers related to the Eyes of Loyalty.
Yeah.
But then if you follow Eyes of Loyalty again, it takes you back to here, which is an additional mandate. Then if you follow Eyes of Loyalty Anointing, it takes you back to here, which is the Eyes of Loyalty. And I think that is the final effect. So this looks somewhat familiar. It looks like some sort of blessing or something you can place on people that make people more tuned into the idea of loyalty. And I think the idea is... I'm really guessing, because there really is a rabbit hole to go through to understand what the Eyes of Loyalty are. But I think it's something that the Cardinal of Loyalty can do to focus someone's loyalty keenly, and now most loyalty priests can do it because more people are open to it.
Okay, so it's something like an aura you can put on people.
Like an aura.
But it's like a different one, an additional one.
An anointment or something like that.
Very cool. An anointment.
I think, I'll be honest, it's not very clear, and I couldn't figure it out beyond that.
Okay. That's cool. So yeah, it's like an extra addition to that.
But other than that, I agree with you. That is everything in the 4 wins.
All rounded up. I'm just going to double check if there's any more, because we never know. Not for now.
We're up to date.
But if there are more tomorrow, we'll be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m.
Yeah. If there are more on Wednesday, we'll be back on Wednesday at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And if there are more on Thursday, find us in the field and we'll talk to you about them. Because that's where we'll be.
We won't be doing it on here. So yeah. I hope you've had a good sort of
back and forth
with this, and
hopefully that helps you understand the wins a little better.
Yeah.
If you do have any questions about the wins, happy for you to pop them in chat. Happy to answer them.
Or any comments about
what you think of like us doing it in this like slightly shortened form. But
I think it makes it a little bit more digestible myself. But happy to hear any feedback.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, it's been lovely to do this.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll keep going.
For sure.
I'm really excited for the event.
Yeah, I'm very excited. It's all happening.
It's all happening.
So, there's a thing we do.
Yeah, remember
everyone.
He who LARPs last.
I hate it. Bye everyone.
Bye.